She had to get in there somehow.
Subject who's deceased inside the
oh, they got
building,
deceased
with a self-inflicted wound that at this time we believe to be the shooter, but we're still following up on that.
All right, NPR's Nate Rott is on the line now with more. Hi, Nate.
Hey, Mary Louise.
What more do we know at this point about the shooter?
We really don't know much. I mean, just that she is a woman. They have not given out any other information at this time. If she was an employee or related to the company in any way, if there was, we're not even in the beginning stages of figuring out a motive here. I mean, it is, I guess, somewhat remarkable that she is a woman, because a lot of times in these mass shootings, as you well know, the perpetrators are usually men.
Right.
Usually white men.
What about the other victims that we just heard Police Chief Barberini refer to there? What do we know about them?
So we talked to a spokesman at the San Francisco General Hospital. He said that one of the victims is a male who's 36. He is said to be in critical condition. Another is a 32-year-old woman who is in serious condition. And the last is a 27-year-old woman who we are told...
I think Susan's a lot older than the 32.
I should say, though, with these sort of incidents, they're so fluid and things can change so fast. So those are the initial numbers, the initial information that we have, but these things do change.
It's like 72.
Really important point to emphasize as these situations tragically continue to unfold. What more can you tell us about what is actually happening on?
So authorities say that the building is now completely evacuated. Everybody that was there has left, and that the authorities are now clearing the building. They're going through and searching it. Google says that there are about 1,000 people who work in that facility, and they say they are working with authorities and will provide any information they can when they have it. But that's really all we know from this scene there. I know that, as you described, it's been a chaotic scene, and people are outside talking to folks who have been evacuated and all that. And we've heard from some of those people with some of the reporters that we have up there on the ground. Tanya Mosley, the Silicon Valley bureau chief for our member station KQED, said she talked to an engineer who had heard a fire alarm, ran out of his office, and saw a man on the ground with what appeared to be gunshot wounds. So I would assume that would have been one of the victims that we were talking about.
And Nate, for those of us who are not in California, can you give us just a little bit more sense of the geography here, where exactly this headquarters is?
Yeah, so this is in San Bruno. Anybody that's flown into San Francisco International Airport, it's just to the west of that, so a little south of San Francisco. That whole area is highly populated. This is kind of Silicon Valley area.
Okay, that's NPR's Nate Rott reporting there on this still, as you said, very unfolding, very fluid situation at the headquarters of YouTube. Nate, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
After days of sharply criticizing Mexico for doing too little to tamp down on illegal immigration, President Trump had this to say today.
We are preparing for the military to secure our border between Mexico and the United States. We have a meeting on it in a little while with General Mattis and everybody, and I think that it's something we have to do.
Trump says the military will stay at the border until a border wall is built or, quote, proper security is put in place. The administration offered no other details on the plan.
Earlier today, before President Trump announced his military directive, I met with Mexico's representative in Washington, Ambassador Jeronimo Gutierrez, and I asked him to respond to Trump's repeated accusation that Mexico is doing very little, if not nothing, to address illegal border crossings.
I would beg to differ. We do have a daunting task and challenge in better addressing immigration. But if you look at some figures of the past years, you will see that Mexico has repatriated a very large number of Central Americans that enter Mexico through our southern border. Just in 2016, that number was around, I think, 153,000 people. During 2017, that number was close to 100,000 people.
So these are people you have sent back to their home countries?
We have repatriated them, respecting very strictly their human rights and according to internationally established procedures.
So are you saying it could be worse if Mexico wasn't taking action?
Well, yes, I do believe that if Mexico was not doing that, probably the situation in our shared border would be a little bit more complicated.
The president has at times made the connection between his concerns about migration over the border and at the same time threatened NAFTA, because NAFTA negotiations are going on while we're hearing about all of this. And that's the North American Free Trade Agreement. It lifted tariffs on goods traded between Canada and Mexico and the U.S. When he makes a threat about pulling out, do you believe him?
Well, what I believe is that it is in the best interest of the three countries to modernize NAFTA in a way that all of us benefit. Negotiations are taking place. We do believe that NAFTA has been, on balance, a good agreement for the three countries. We also recognize that
the president calls it like one of the worst deals in history, so he does not see it, right, on balance, as a benefit to the U.S.
I guess that in diplomacy sometimes is needed to open room to agree to disagree on certain issues. I'm not saying that NAFTA has been perfect. I think that it can certainly be improved. I like to think that that is the intent behind the administration's position. We do believe that Mexico would not be well served by having NAFTA finished. But we also believe that the United States would not be well served by finishing NAFTA. People here in the United States are hurting in many places and in many regions. The same happens in Mexico. If you ask someone in the Midwest states here in the United States, they might feel a bit threatened about all of that globalization implies and about international trade. If you go and ask a farmer in Mexico that has always been linked, for example, to corn, he will probably or she will probably feel the same thing. But nevertheless, Mexico has become a very important destination for U.S. exports, and that benefits a lot of people and helps create a lot of jobs in the United States. It is estimated that at least 5 million jobs are in the United States are directly dependent upon trade with NAFTA. And pretty much the same thing happens in Mexico.
Hanging over all of this is rhetoric about the wall, which is a campaign pledge from President Trump that is carried over into his administration, a conversation that he has not let go of and is still talked about Mexico paying for it and or finding other ways to eke it out of Mexican citizens. What is your response to that?
Two quick things. Number one is Mexico does understand the importance of having a secure border. We're in favor of having a secure border. Number two, there are some things that we just simply have to agree to disagree, and the issue of the wall is precisely one in which we are agreeing to disagree.
And the current stance that we've heard from Mexican leadership is Mexico will not pay for a wall.
We will certainly not pay for a wall.
We are here at the embassy. You are the top diplomat, and you are speaking diplomatically. And there has been criticism in Mexico that the administration is being too soft on America and Trump, right? You're hearing that very loudly from the leading candidate in the presidential election right there, López Obrador. He said that Mexico and its people will not be the piñata for any foreign government. And this message seems to be resonating. Do you think your government has miscalculated something here?
Let me tell you something. This is not the first time that I have been blamed for being soft in the relationship with the United States. And I really don't mind. Because I think that the relationship with the United States is important for Mexico. I've said so publicly. I've said that I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that Mexico and the U.S. can and should have a positive relationship. But that does not mean that at any cost. There are limits for both sides. Those limits are pretty clear, I think. I do expect that there will continue to be more noise about the relationship. I do expect that there will continue to be more noise between Mexico and the United States. Quite frankly, the same happens in the U.S. Often, even during the campaigns.